Well, hello again. It's Kevin Byrne from the Cairns Tourism Industry Association. It's my great pleasure today to be with Captain Dan the Man McCarthy, who is well known in these parts. He skippers a wonderful game fishing boat called Moana, and we'll talk a little bit today about the effect of what COVID's done to the game fishing industry in our part of the world. We are the headquarters of the big black marlin game fishing fleet, and this is where the industry started, and this is where the industry is still should be firing. Before we do, Dan, it's wonderful to be here in front of this wonderful monument to the industry and the role this industry played in the evolution of international tourism in Cairns. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's absolutely right, Kevin. Back in 1964, when George Bransford caught the first 1,000-pound marlin, him and his crew, Richard Oback, went out on a day off actually. They'd been hearing stories about giant marlin here eating the professional mackerel fisherman's catch. And he heard these rumours and thought, I better go and check this out. And he was a fisherman overseas, and he settled here after the war and started doing that in 1964. The 26th of September it was, they caught the first 1,000-pound marlin right here, right out on Jenny Louise Shoal there. And since then, a industry quickly evolved, and it became a real draw card for high-profile celebrities and presidents and whatever all around the world to come here to have a chance at catching those giant fish. And back then, Cairns was a sleepy little village, and it's since grown into a magnificent tourist attraction that we have here today, with people going out to the reef. And you know, our industry is very much dominated by international tourists. Our industry each year brings around $50 million into our Cairns economy with just a handful of boats, bringing people in here, staying at the best restaurant, eating at the best restaurants, staying at the best hotels, going out on the world-class boats, out on our wonderful, magnificent Great Barrier Reef.
Thank you. Look, there's a little bit of a side story to that. I understand George Bransford also was out here during the war. He was a serviceman, and he heard these stories about these huge fish, and he used to jump in the back of planes whenever he could to go out and see if they existed. And so he heard these stories continuously in the pubs and so on, and it brought him back. And you know, the late great Lee Marvin used to come here, and I was privileged when I was president of the Game Fishing Club of hosting him to a lunch before he went out. I think he was going out with Dennis Wallace on his boat. Dennis used to fish with him all the time. Let's talk about where we're at now. 9 o'clock in the morning, beautiful day, in a marina that's chock-a-block full. And, you know, as the camera goes around this marina, let's just talk a little bit about the impact that COVID has had on the international visitation and the international fishing fraternity that really drove this industry. Where are they?
Exactly, Kevin. They're all at home overseas. Our industry has been flawed. We've lost virtually 95% of our charter days this year, and our income and all the rest of it, and that's across the industry. There's the amount of boats out there now on the reef, you can count on one hand. There's a couple of them have some charters from Queensland residents, and a couple of them have their owners on board, but most of the boats are right here in the marina, or in the marinas up and down the coast, that would normally be out there catching and releasing these giant fish and bringing millions and millions of dollars into our local economy. But we're all here tied up, with our international borders closed and our industry's on its knees.
And I understand you have a regular client from Japan who comes out here for 2 weeks.
Yep.
He's been your client for a long, long time, and he's beside himself because he can't get out here.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. He would be out here next week. He comes for at least 1 week every year. Sometimes it's a week in October and a week in November. And he is an amazing fisherman. He has a great time. A beautiful person, and just and spreads our story around the world.
Great
to his
ambassador
other clients.
for us.
Great ambassador. He's actually the IGFA rep for Japan, and he had a wonderful trip here with us last year out of Lizard Island. He caught 3 marlin over 1,000 pounds in 1 day.
Wow!
Still pinching myself, wondering, did that actually happen? It was just so incredible.
So the fish are still out there.
The fish are great.
No problem about that.
One of the boats yesterday, Kakawa, caught the first 1,000-pound marlin for the season this year. Right. Yesterday, a huge fish, well over 1,000 pounds by the reports, and Our fishery is in amazing shape. It's in incredible shape. The Great Barrier Reef is in awesome shape as well. And unfortunately, we're all sitting here unable to take people out to the reef. Our clients aren't allowed to come here at the moment. And looking down the track for next year, it's still an unknown quantity. We don't know whether our international guests are going to be able to come and at what level and whatever. And obviously our industry, across our industry, everybody's wondering, okay, well, how long can we sustain this? The old survival of the fittest scenario is virtually engulfing our entire industry, and you know, it's pretty daunting times, Kevin. It really is.
It certainly is. And look, you know, let's try and put a number on it. And I'm pleased you mentioned the Great Barrier Reef and the state of the Great Barrier Reef, because it is a wonderful example
Absolutely.
of a reef system, occasionally under stress, but it's in pristine condition.
Absolutely.
And people should come and have a look at it if you can. But let's try and put an economic number on this. When you consider all the boats that are tied up here, you consider the international people that come and stay in the hotel like the Shangri-La behind us, and you have a look and you think about all those motherships that are out there operating with people, boat drivers, captains, fuel, everything else.
We generate around about 50 million a year.
No,
about 50, but that's you're talking about 25 professional boats and a few private boats.
That's just the boat component. I'm thinking of the bigger component. Wouldn't be $500 million, quite obviously, but it would be up there around 100 million when you talk about accommodation and mothershipping and everything else.
It's a huge industry, Kevin. You're right, and it generates a lot of money, and that's with a very small number of people as well. Like, you know, there's a lot of in our, you know, generally across our tourism industry, you get a lot of people come to town, particularly when you have these promotions with really cheap airfares and stuff, and that's all great. It gets people to town, but a lot of those people, it's fly and flop. So they'll come here and, you know, go to the beach. They might do a low-level tourism trip because they've got a budget, and that's totally understandable.
Yep.
And we welcome those people as much as anybody. There's no question about that. But our industry is unique because we bring people from overseas, so it's fresh money into town and bucket loads of it. It's like the super yacht industry. It's a lot of money, a lot of people per head, so to speak.
Sure.
So it's so vital, and it's you know, we just need to keep our industry alive and get through this crisis.
Okay, Dan, thank you so much for taking time this morning. I'll finish off on this note that, you know, it's very, very important that the message continues to go out to the rest of Australia. We need our borders open. We need them open domestically and also quickly as possible with the international borders. We need a protocol, a travel protocol. We need a national plan to address this. It's vitally important for communities such as Cairns, who are a long, long way from the bigger metropolitan areas like Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne. And when you see literally the enormity of the dollars that are tied up in floating real estate in this marina going absolutely nowhere, whilst ever this pandemic keeps going with no resolution in sight. So I want you to support Cairns whenever you can. If you're a fisher person, please come up here. If you want to go to the reef, please come up here as quickly as possible and as quickly as people can travel. Thank you very much.